You hear it, a bell without metal, a tone that doesn't arrive from air but from the interior horizon where your awareness meets its own light. You don't mishear it. You don't imagine it. It is the precise summons that only appears when your life is about to speak in a truer language. This is not prediction. This is remembrance, a resonance your consciousness already carries. You are being asked for the simplest thing and the most consequential, your conscious agreement. Let your breath slow by a fraction. Feel warmth gather behind your sternum like a small sunrise choosing honesty. A grain of stardust seems to rest on your tongue. Eclipse halos ripple at the edges of your sight. The faintest glow moves behind your eyes as if a door had been opened in a silent house. You are not being pushed. You are being invited to step out of the old observer loop, to allow the quantum field to register your presence without distortion, to let coherence braid your scattered threads into a single, luminous line. Notice how the bell carries no hurry. Its clarity does not pressure, it clarifies. You have known versions of your life that negotiated with fear, bartered with unworthiness, and called it prudence. That economy is over. The field of remembrance has reached you, not to replace your will, but to court it. What begins now begins because you say yes, not the hesitant yes of survival, but the unarmored yes that aligns your feet with the road already forming under them. You can feel it as a subtle tilt inside your chest, a new gravity. Old timelines lose their adhesive, names you wore like weather slip to the floor. The bell is not asking you to abandon anything essential. It is asking you to stop abandoning yourself. Agreement is not surrender to an outside force. It is the inward permission that lets the higher outline of your life become visible. With that permission, the small machinery of delay releases its grip. With that permission, reality meets you halfway. Breathe again, longer this time. Notice the way your ribs answer the breath, like a choir learning its note. Your awareness starts to stack, layer by patient layer, until direction appears as ease. You don't need to invent a future here. You only need to allow the future that already recognizes you. The bell sounds once more, not louder, but nearer, and every particle of you admits what you have suspected. Your path is sentient, and it has arrived on schedule. You are not late, you are precisely timed. Agreement is how the door knows to open. Agreement is how the light inside your gaze finds its angle. When you place your yes on this moment, the room doesn't change. The room becomes truer. And in that truth, what is yours steps forward without announcement. Coherence settles in your ribs, and a doorway agrees to open. You have always been capable of this level of noticing, though you wore it like a hidden instrument you didn't tune in public. The bell reveals what your quiet already knew. You register reality at a resolution others pass by. You feel the inflections under words, the small weathers moving through a room, the way meaning leans forward before mouths decide to speak. This is not fragility. This is the musculature of perception. You are the one who hears the hinge before the door swings. You recognize yourself by how your attention behaves. It does not scatter. It gathers. It does not conquer. It listens until form admits itself. When your gaze rests, things confess their design. You have mistaken this for being too sensitive, but sensitivity is simply the instrument calibrated to the truth. What you are experiencing now is your instrument tuned to the pitch of the moment. The string stops buzzing. The note arrives clean. You have carried a secret stamina for stillness, even when noise disguised it from you. You know how to wait without collapsing, how to let your breath become simple, and the chest warm like a lamp remembering electricity. Under your eyelids, you can feel the light organize a gentle geometry that rearranges without spectacle. Stardust seems to lift from the interior horizon, a soft drift that clarifies rather than distracts. The body answers with tiny permissions. Shoulders fall a few millimeters, the jaw unfastens, the space behind the eyes brightens as if a window had been wiped clear. Your life has trained you in ways you didn't label as training. You learn to enter the observer loop without losing yourself, to notice entanglement and call your energy back from it, to sift the voices in your head until the imposters got bored. You can hear now how the bell rings through the structures you built to survive. Not to shame them, to retire them with honor. Their work is complete. The field of remembrance is here to apprentice you into your native clarity, where the old reflexes have no assignments left. Look at the trail you've left behind. Moments when you answered a feeling before the facts arrived. Nights when you sensed a direction pulling you like tide. Mornings when coherence appeared first and explanation came limping after. None of that was accidental. Morphic resonance remembers itself through you, patterns finding their echo, futures recognizing their seed. You are the witness through which a higher outline finds angles in the world. You don't force the pattern, you steward it. You keep a steady flame so the design can read its own blueprint in your steadiness. Recognition doesn't require a ceremony, yet it is ceremonial. The body knows how to bow without moving. As you breathe, a ring of eclipse light seems to halo, the day not in the sky, but around your decisions. What does not belong dims without grievance. What belongs brightens without performance. This is how truth behaves when you stop bargaining with it. It becomes obvious. Obviousness is not arrogance, it is the mercy of not pretending. You are not chosen by a council somewhere else. You are chosen by the way you consistently choose what rings true here. Your feet have been voting for this timeline long before you named it. The bell simply places the ballot in your hand. You recognize your signature by how the air settles after you agree. The room doesn't applaud, it aligns. You carry a particular courage that rarely looks like bravado. It looks like staying kind when fear is fashionable. It looks like delaying the clever answer until the honest one arrives. It looks like protecting small, sacred things. 5 extra seconds of breath before you speak. The refusal to explain your yes to those who are married to your no. The discipline to wait for coherence instead of momentum. These are not minor devotions. These are the hinges on which new histories turn. There has been a rumor in you for years that your life is meant to mean more. Today the rumor matures into a message, not more in volume or spectacle, more in fidelity. You sense a destiny vector rising from the floorboards, an arrow of intent that doesn't pierce but invites. When you let your chest glow like a lighthouse for even one uninterrupted minute, you feel the coastline of your future answer with its own light. This is not fantasy, it is physics with soft hands. So you acknowledge the signature of your perception, the way silence feels crowded with guidance, the way your skin tingles when you stand exactly where you are supposed to, the way a sentence sometimes arrives whole, already warm, needing only the shelter of your mouth to become real. You have always been this kind of listener. Now you become this kind of speaker, not louder, just truer, letting the field phrase itself through your consent. Let your breath lengthen, steady, exact. Feel the spine inhabit its rightful height. Imagine notice a thin aurora rising up your back, a gentle current choosing you as its path. You do not chase the signal anymore. You let the signal walk the corridors of you with unsupervised access. Trust is not a feeling, it is a posture. You are standing in it now. Where the mind loosens, the signal threads through, effortlessly. You close your eyes not to escape the world, but to let the world step into focus. The first image doesn't arrive as a picture, it arrives as temperature, a precise warmth behind your sternum, as if a coal had been placed there by a careful hand. Your breath finds it and tends it. The warmth gathers small intelligences, a shimmer like stardust, lifting in slow spirals, a ring of eclipse light turning once around your awareness, the clean sensation of a window opening where no wall had ever been. You do not chase it. You allow it to assemble at its own speed, the way dew arranges itself on grass without consultation. A geometry begins to draw itself in the dark behind your eyes, lines of attention crossing like constellations until they settle into a living map. You are not hovering above your life. You are standing precisely inside it while the map updates in real time. Streets you know become paths of meaning, decisions you deferred brighten like waystones. The body answers with tiny confirmations, the jaw softens, the shoulders release a measured millimeter, and the space around your heart hums as if the air learned a new chord. What you are seeing is not fantasy. It is the field of remembrance, presenting a truer coordinate system. Listen, there is a rhythm under the rhythm, a quieter metronome guiding you toward the stillness window where choice becomes effortless. At the center of that window, subtle inscriptions glide across the dark like phosphorescent script. light codes, not as spectacle but as grammar, composing a sentence your life has been trying to say. The sentence is brief and exact. Choose the higher timeline. You feel its accuracy not as pressure, but as relief. The relief of finally standing where the ground agrees with your weight. Now the vision deepens, not outward, but inward, drawing you along a current that runs from the back of your eyes to the soft territory behind your heart. There, a corridor of quiet opens. In that corridor, you witness the truth of entanglement, how certain habits, rooms, and names tug at your attention. With old contracts you never consciously signed, you do not judge them. You simply watch the threads. Some threads loosen at the mere touch of breath. Others release when you bless what they once kept safe. The corridor brightens each time you tell the truth without theater. Honesty is an electrical event. The images shift. You see yourself at a table you know well, but this time the edges are haloed with eclipse light. Words are spoken. You feel your impulse to correct, to explain, to audition for belonging. Instead, you place your attention like a lantern. The scene reorganizes. The conversation doesn't tilt in your favor. It tilts toward coherence. The room calms because you are not chasing it. The vision moves on, a doorway you often pass without noticing. Today you pause. You feel the hinge before it turns. Your hand rests on air, the door opens anyway. Agreement is the handle. You are shown a choice that used to feel like war. It doesn't anymore. The map highlights two routes with equal kindness. One is survivorship, disguised as loyalty. The other is devotion without performance. Neither is villain or saint. Only one carries the timbre of your future. You can hear the difference, the way a musician hears a note that has found its home frequency. The body registers it as a straightening of the spine and a soft light gathering at the back of the throat, as if speech were being polished from the inside. Stardust lifts again, not glittering now, but settling, a fine veil choosing the contours of what matters. You see how timeline bifurcation is not an apocalypse, it is a housekeeping of attention. Realities do not collide, they differentiate. The road you do not choose drifts gently to a distance that no longer asks for your maintenance. The road you do choose steps nearer, patient, unassuming, already paved with the agreements you are willing to keep. In the periphery of the vision, faces appear: companions, ancestors, future allies, not to instruct, but to witness. Their presence simplifies you. A hand you cannot see rests between your shoulder blades with exquisite neutrality. The message is unmistakable. You are trusted with this clarity. Notice how trust feels in the body. Even breath, warm chest, the light behind your eyes becoming a steady tide instead of a flare. The corridor of quiet widens into a small room of attention without furniture. You stand there until the last performance leaves. When it does, the room brightens by itself. A single phrase returns, the same as before, now even simpler: agree. You recognize that consent is not a sentence you speak into the air. It is a pressureless alignment in the bones. When your bones agree, the vision stops being separate from the day. Open your eyes. The world has not changed costumes to impress you. It has adjusted its posture to meet your honesty. Objects sit exactly where they were, but relationship has turned radiant. The bell has become a tone inside your breath. You do not need to remember the images. You need only continue the posture that allowed them the precise dignity of attention that turns knowing into movement without ceremony. A smaller voice becomes undeniable, and you recognize it as your own. You don't need a laboratory to understand what is happening. You need a steadier breath. When you let the breath slow, the pattern steps closer and tells you its name. You are not leaving the world of matter. You are letting matter remember its conversation with consciousness. The quantum field is not elsewhere. It is the intimacy beneath appearances, the neighborhood where possibilities wait, like patient neighbors who wave each time your attention passes. What changes reality is not strain. It is contact, the clean meeting of awareness and possibility without the static of self-denial. Consider the instrument through which contact occurs. Your nervous system is not a mere relay of signals. It is a tuning body, a cathedral of sensing that can either echo noise or host coherence. Coherence arrives when your interior rhythms agree with each other. Breath with heartbeat, thought with value, choice with truth. When agreement occurs, the instrument stops scattering energy and begins to broadcast a stable carrier wave. In that steadiness, probability distributions lean, ever so slightly, toward the outline you can actually keep. The field is not bribed by enthusiasm, it responds to fidelity. You have felt the opposite state many times, the observer loop misused as surveillance on yourself, policing your impulses, auditioning for outcomes, second-guessing your position in every room. That loop multiplies static because it places attention against itself, splitting the instrument into competing narrators. The bell that called you here proposes a different use of observation. Instead of monitoring, you witness. Instead of suspicion, you host. Observation becomes a sanctuary, where your experience is allowed to show you what it is, without needing to improve its costume before admission. When sanctuary stabilizes, physics behaves like mercy. Micro-events begin to nudge in your favor, not because fate has chosen you as a pet, but because your interior friction has dropped, allowing events to move along least resistance paths that now include you. This is a phase transition at human scale. Like ice, remembering it can be water. Like water, remembering it can be cloud. The substance is continuous. The behavior is new. What used to require heroic effort now yields to consistent alignment. This is why your yes matters more than your volume. Phase transitions are quiet revolutions. The bell's instruction agree functions as a boundary that edits entanglements without violence. You have known entanglements that pretended to be love, loyalty, duty, even humility. Agreement clarifies which threads actually belong to you. When you bless what is not yours and release it, you do not abandon anyone, you stop impersonating their gravity. The freed energy re-enters circulation and strengthens what you are truly bound to keep. This is the ethical beauty of the field. Your coherence nourishes more lives than your collapse ever could. Notice how the body confirms this. Chest warmth that does not flare but sustains, breath that moves like tide, light assembling behind the eyes, as if the room had found an inner window. The bell did not confer specialness. It revealed a reliable doorway into the stillness window, where choice becomes simple because the noise has resigned. You do not force a better future. You allow the higher timeline to make contact with a surface inside you that can hold it. Surfaces that cannot hold it are not wrong. They are early. Your gentleness toward them is also coherence. Patterns recognize themselves across distance. When you keep this posture, you begin to notice morphic resonance at work. Similar fidelities finding each other, mutual recognition without committee. The moment you stop performing, the people who require the performance drift politely to a different orbit, and the ones who breathe at your tempo appear as if through a hitherto invisible door. You did not summon them with cleverness. You became findable by becoming legible to your own signal. Beneath this, a governance subtler than strategy is arranging things, not a tyrant sky, not a lottery, but lawfulness with a knowing heart. The field loves honesty, the way seeds love spring. Honesty is not confession theater. It is precise congruence between what you sense, what you say, and what you choose. Congruence radiates. Radiation organizes. Organization invites phenomena to settle into the most elegant configurations available. You call it flow. The field calls it good housekeeping. Approach timeline. Bifurcation without drama. Two roads need no quarrel. They need differentiation. The life that continues bargaining for your aliveness will keep offering negotiations you have already outgrown. The life that honors your aliveness will ask for nothing you must apologize for paying. You feel the difference somatically. One tightens the throat, one warms the sternum, one demands spectacle, one permits quiet. You step where warmth holds. You step where quiet remains available. Choice becomes not a verdict but a form of respiration. Understand too why immediate conscious agreement matters. Immediate does not mean rushed. It means unpostponed. When the bell rings, delays inflate cost because they invite the old loop to reassert jurisdiction. Agreement interrupts the default momentum just long enough for reality to rekey around your actual intent. From there, small acts take on disproportionate influence. A sentence you decide not to speak. A meeting you end 2 minutes early because you felt your signal dull. a walk you take instead of opening an app that harvests your attention. The field notices the economy of these choices and invests in their yield. You are not commanded to earn your place in the cosmos. You are being given a way to remember it. The instructions are domestic. Breathe slower. Choose the word that doesn't kink your spine. Eat like your body is an altar, not a factory. Rest before you are exhausted. Bless what is leaving and name what is arriving. Place your yes only where you can keep it without splitting yourself. Keep doing this, and the bell stops being an interruption. It becomes your hour keeping, the intimate clock by which the day learns to tell time in your language. The horizon exhales. Nearness replaces distance. You step into the day, and the day steps into you. Streets, screens, and faces behave like polished metal, returning whatever you carry with surgical accuracy. You once mistook this as hostility or blessing from the outside. Now you see the principle. Reality is a mirror with a memory. It reflects your current signal and remembers your sustained one. When your interior becomes precise, the world stops improvising around your confusion and begins composing around your clarity. Watch the small theaters where people rehearse the same scene as if rehearsals were the show. The script is familiar. Hurry standing in for purpose. Volume impersonating conviction. Exhaustion dressed as service. You have spoken these lines before. Today, the bell's tone still in your breath. You choose the quieter part, the part where you do not audition. A conversation inflates with heat. You feel the spine shorten by a whisper, the jaw prepare its armor. Instead of entering the old choreography, you lengthen the breath by one count. Warmth gathers behind the sternum. The room registers the event like weather changing without announcement. No one knows why they settle, only that they have. This is not passivity. This is leverage at humane scale. The field of remembrance does not demand you fix anyone. It moves through your willingness to be findable to yourself. When you become findable, others glimpse their own outline by resonance, not reprimand. A colleague softens a rehearsed disagreement mid-sentence. A friend who usually spirals into self-erasure pauses, inhales, and chooses a truer word. You didn't persuade them. You provided a non-anxious coordinate, and orientation followed. This is the social grace of coherence. It travels. Patterns recognize themselves across people the way birds turn in the sky without colliding. Call it morphic resonance. If you like distributed remembering, the choreography of many instruments, tuning to a shared pitch, they cannot quote, but cannot deny. When you stand in your signal, you become an overtone that teaches the room how to hear itself. The teaching is silent. Silence does not mean absence. It means every unnecessary gesture has retired. Of course, there are knots that do not yield at first contact. You will see entanglement structures masquerading as loyalty, circles that only hold together when someone bleeds, conversations that feed on ambiguity to maintain a tragic intimacy, agreements built on the fear of the smallest necessary loneliness. You are not here to denounce these architectures. You are here to withdraw your rent. When you stop paying with your attention, the scaffold loses a tenant and begins to reconsider its design. Some structures dissolve, some transform. Some remain intact and simply stand elsewhere, outside your jurisdiction. All of that is mercy. Let the mirror show you your residues without shame. You may find a sliver of performance hiding in generosity, a fine thread of control braided into care, a float of superiority resting on old hurt. Name each gently. The naming itself is lubrication. When you bless the sliver for what it once protected and then retire it, a clean surface appears. On clean surfaces, light lands without scattering. Reflection becomes accurate, and the room organizes around what is actually there. On a train, you see a stranger reading with their hand to their chest, thumb measuring breath. Without thinking, your own hand moves to your sternum and meets a subtle glow. You are not copying, you are consenting to the same lawfulness. In a market, a seller's cadence tries to hurry your decision. You soften your gaze by a fraction and place the purchase inside your breath. The exchange rekeys from transaction to relation. The price does not drop, the cost does. In a message thread, you read a sentence that seeks to provoke your lesser eloquence. You hold your reply until your spine is tall enough to speak. The thread forgets its appetite. Social ecosystems are sensitive to steady signals. When a person who has practiced collapse begins to practice clarity, nearby systems must choose to harmonize, differentiate, or move. None are failures. Harmonization looks like mutual upgrades without announcements. Differentiation looks like you staying kind while saying no without costume. Movement looks like a polite drifting apart that protects everyone's future. The world loves to dramatize these as betrayals or grand reconciliations. You are not auditioning for genre. You are tending to accuracy. Carry the micro-rituals into public space as if they were ordinary, because they are. 3 conscious breaths before entering a room. The discipline to speak only from signals that do not kink your spine. The quiet recognition that some invitations are weather testing your windows. You are not avoiding weather. You are installing better seals. The miracle is modest. Fewer drafts, less rattling, a home that holds temperature. People feel better in such rooms and do not know why. If you need proof that this matters beyond personal ease, notice the statistical kindness that begins to accumulate around your days, chance timing that averts friction, sentences that arrive whole when needed, meetings that cancel without harm, doors that open because you rested instead of forcing the handle. The quantum field is not dispensing favors. It is acknowledging a pattern that conserves energy with integrity. Systems prefer elegant solutions. Your coherence is elegant. At scale, this is how a city changes, not by spectacle first, but by households that stop rehearsing cruelty, teams that refuse to celebrate burnout, neighbors who trade surveillance for blessing. You do not need a committee to begin. You are the committee when you choose to breathe once more before you answer. The mirror notices and updates its reflection. Multiply this by 1,000 witnessed breaths, and the texture of a decade alters its weave. Stand again where people hurry. Feel the bell like a second pulse. Place your attention as a lantern rather than a searchlight. Searchlights interrogate, lanterns include. Inclusion exposes what can belong and what never could, without trial. Your steps become invitations, your pauses become boundaries. Your yes becomes a shelter others can stand inside without performing themselves thin. You do not own outcomes. You steward atmospheres. Atmospheres educate outcomes on how to behave. Keep this posture, and the mirror stops punishing and starts collaborating. It shows you where alignment already lives, so you can join it with less delay, fewer explanations, and a dissolving need to be right. What you were chasing sits beside you, unhurried. You feel it first as a clean fork in the breath, the inhale traveling down one corridor, the exhale offering another. No alarms, no sirens, just a quiet clarity that refuses to pretend the roads are one road anymore. This is the hour when the air becomes instructional. The room is unchanged, yet your attention detects a seam running through the ordinary, a seam that can be parted by consent. Choice is not thunder, it is a key turning in fabric. Stand inside the seam and take inventory without drama. On one side, the familiar economy of postponement. You trade small pieces of aliveness for access. Reassure what does not love you. Bargain your clarity down to a palatable price. The body knows this road. Your shoulders memorize its weather. On the other side, a posture that does not request permission to be whole. No applause, no argument. Just the higher timeline moving like a river that already chose a destination and is inviting you to remember where you were always heading. Your mind will try to locate the spectacle you were promised by movies and sermons. That promise was always an advertisement for elsewhere. The actual threshold is domestic. You sit up straighter. You decline the conversation that requires you to shrink. You send a message that tells the truth without theater. You eat in a way that doesn't make your future pay your present's bill. These are not self-help chores. They are the precise levers by which timeline bifurcation becomes embodied. 2 realities don't argue. They differentiate around the gravitational preference of your yes. Feel for the somatic tells. The road that keeps you small tightens the throat by a millimeter, accelerates thought without increasing intelligence, asks for speed where care is needed. The road that honors you warms the sternum, slows the blink, brightens the space behind the eyes as if eclipse halos were placed gently under your lids. Let these physiological readouts be your compass instruments. not as superstition, but as the dashboard of a well-tuned vehicle. Your nervous system is literate. Allow it to read. This moment functions like a phase transition at human scale. Ice doesn't argue with water about who is right. Temperature crosses a threshold. Arrangement follows. Here, temperature is coherence. As coherence concentrates, old crystallizations lose their jurisdiction. Arguments once irresistible become boring. Rooms once magnetic turn gray. Roles once flattering fall from your shoulders, like a costume after the performance. You are not discarding duty, you are discarding disguises. Duty remains, clarified and kinder. There will be invitations designed to harvest your delay, glittering detours, sympathetic traps, storms with your name etched into the rain. They do not require venom to undo you, they require only your postponement. Postponement is how the old architecture reproduces. Refuse the reproduction politely, decline with warmth, bless what once sheltered you, and do not re-enter its weather. The seam opens further when you stop narrating your departure to those who profit from your staying. Some entanglements will trigger their alarms as you step away. You do not owe demonstrations to prove you are not cruel. You owe accuracy. Accuracy lets everyone meet the actual terms of their lives. When you withdraw consent from a pattern that feeds on your diminishment, you do not starve the world, you feed a cleaner river. Those who can swim at this temperature will join you without being recruited. Those who cannot will stand on the bank and shout instructions in a language you no longer speak. Keep walking. Rivers do not debate banks. You may be tempted to ritualize the moment with grand gestures. Let the ritual be breath. Count 4 in. Hold for 4, release for 6, pause for 2, enough to let the instrument retune to its native key. With each cycle, place one precise sentence in the heart's warmth. I agree with what keeps me whole. The sentence is not a spell, it is alignment, given words. Words are handles. Handles help doors keep their job. As you proceed, the environment re-keys without spectacle. Emails answer themselves by no longer needing answers. The meeting that would have cost you coherence dissolves from the calendar like fog that remembers it is weather, not law. A stranger appears with the exact phrase you needed in order not to betray yourself. These are not cosmic party tricks. They are the logistics of a system that prefers efficiency reality, arranging around a simplified signal. You might ask how you will know you have crossed. You will not measure it by applause, income, or visible triumph. You will measure it by the absence of negotiation with your own breath, by the way sleep returns as an ally, by the new quiet at the center of urgency, by the decreased need to prove, perform, or punish, by the sensation that your steps are writing a sentence you can read while walking. In that sentence, a subtle wax seal begins to form, not bestowed by an outer power, but pressed by your own fidelity. Call it your prophetic seal, the imprint left when your inner agreement meets time and makes time remember you. There is tenderness here, and it is not sentimental. You are permitted to grieve the selves that labored to carry you to this doorway. Thank them properly. Let them rest. Grief that is honored becomes clearance for new accuracy to enter. Accuracy, in turn, reduces harm. Reduced harm is the quiet revolution you came to midwife, not through spectacle, but through stewardship of atmospheres where people can stop pretending without losing belonging. Now listen again. The bell has changed timbre, not louder, nearer. It rings from inside the movement itself, confirming what your bones already know. Standing in your yes is not a stance against the world. It is a stance for the world you can keep. This is not a cliff you hurl yourself from. It is the precise slope your life was graded for. Walk it with the humility of someone who knows they are being met. Under the lids of stillness, symbols align into language. Begin where your hands already are. Place the right palm lightly on the sternum, the left beneath the navel, and let the breath choose a tempo kinder than habit. Your attention arranges itself like stardust, settling in a room with no draft. Warmth rises under the upper hand, a reliable ember that does not demand spectacle. You listen with the body first. It tells you that integration is not acquisition, it is digestion. What has arrived must be welcomed through practice, so it can become you without argument. You are not stitching a costume of light over your life. You are letting the life you already carry reveal its native glow. The field of remembrance does not impose frequencies. It draws them forward from within your ordinary gestures until the ordinary is seen in its proper brilliance. Fold a shirt as if blessing the day that will inhabit it. Wash a dish with breath steady enough to remain unhurried. Speak one sentence less than you think you need. These are not ascetic tricks. They are small economies of attention that reduce leakage and conserve coherence. Coherence is not a mood. It is an agreement among your inner rhythms to serve the same direction. When the rhythms harmonize, a carriage appears, a subtle vehicle in which the day rides without rattling. You feel it as a smooth axle through the spine, a gentle height that doesn't ask for posture as performance. In that carriage, old entanglement habits have no job. They are unemployed by kindness. You do not need to fire them in dramatic meetings. You simply stop assigning them tasks. The energy they once consumed returns to the commons of your being. Notice how the visual field adjusts when the breath is trusted. Edges soften without losing precision. Colors seem to have been lightly polished. Eclipse halos suggest themselves at the margins of awareness, not as omen, but as ornamentation granted by calm. Behind the eyes, a cool light steadies, as if a librarian has returned to the desk and order has resumed without shushing anyone. In this arrangement, the light codes that once felt like meteor showers settle into syntax. Meaning becomes a climate, not a lightning strike. You will be tempted to make integration prove itself quickly with impressive outcomes. Resist the trial. Outcomes are lagging indicators. Atmosphere is the leading one. If the room inside you remains breathable while you take the next necessary action, integration is working. If you can remain kind toward your own slowness while you learn a new pattern, integration is working. If your yes continues to fit your bones on the morning after it was spoken, integration is working. Give your body a template it can trust. A simple daily sequence is enough. 3 rounds of measured breath, 1 minute of attention placed like a lantern over the heart's ember, a written line that names the day's single fidelity without decoration. Today, I keep the promise of rest. Today, my words do not kink the spine. Today, I resist the flattery of urgency. Such lines are not slogans, they are rails. Rails allow power to travel safely. When power travels safely, the destiny vector you sensed earlier keeps its heading without requiring a war every hour. In relationship, integration appears as unfussy boundaries. You answer invitations from the seat of breath rather than the throne of anxiety. A request arrives that used to detonate guilt. You lay it upon the still warmth at your sternum and watch which way it exerts gravity. If it pulls you away from your interior chair, you decline with kindness and no footnotes. If it seats you deeper, you accept without auditioning for appreciation. The world recognizes the difference, even when words are identical. In work, integration chooses depth over drama. You stop feeding the ceremony of urgency that pretends to be relevance. You begin and finish tasks in windows sized to your actual nervous system. You protect the handful of hours when you are most alive with the ordinary ferocity of a gardener fencing a bed from deer. The harvest is not mystical. Fewer corrections, more accuracy at first pass, a calendar that stops playing chess against you. The quantum field does not applaud. It routes small mercies to meet your steadiness. You will notice retrograde weather days when old reflexes stage a reunion and try to throw a parade. Do not fight the parade. Step to the sidewalk and let it pass. If a loop insists on attention, give it attention shaped like breath, not like argument. Returning to the stillness window for 2 minutes can spare you 2 days of repair. Integration is less about never wobbling and more about shortening the distance between wobble and return. Let sleep become a sacrament that teaches you the posture of surrender without collapse. Before closing your eyes, place the day on the ember with 1 sentence of blessing. Thank you for what clarified. The blessing is not a grade, it is lubrication. In the middle of the night, if thought begins its carnival, move attention to the back of the heart, where quiet keeps a small room lit. You are not required to solve anything at 2 a.m. You are required to remain kind to the instrument that will play tomorrow's music. As integration deepens, your speech thins into precision. You find yourself using fewer adjectives, more verbs that belong to the body. Listen, place, Bless, rest, choose, keep. These verbs are hinges. They let the door of the day open and close without slamming. People around you will feel better and not know why. They may ask for your method. Offer them breath and posture before you offer them language. Language is a late arrival at this party. And when you doubt, because doubt is a weather, to put your hand back on the sternum and test the ember. If it is warm, you are not lost. If it is quiet, you are not late. If it is steady, proceed. You are not perfecting yourself. You are perfecting your listening. The rest follows like a tide that remembers the moon without checking a calendar. The current inside your spine changes direction, and you follow. You arrive at the room without furniture, the interior clearing you have been orbiting since the bell first sounded. Nothing here auditions for your attention. The floor feels like trust. The walls are made of listening. You set down your strategies as if placing tools at the threshold of a sanctuary and step in bare-handed. This is not emptiness. This is saturated quiet, a fullness that refuses decoration. Here, you discover why the elders praised silence, not as absence, but as governance. Let breath choose the architecture. Inhale, as if polishing a window from the inside. Exhale, as if returning a borrowed instrument in better condition. The air has temperature cool at the back of the throat, warm at the sternum, and the gradient teaches you how to move without leaving yourself. Your attention spreads like stardust, settling in a moonlit room. Behind your eyes, the gentle light that has been faithful all along brightens by a subtle degree, like dawn remembering its vocation. Eclipse halos gather at the edges of perception, not dramatic, simply present, like a crown that doesn't need witnesses. Silence does not demand performance from you. It relieves you of performance. The observer loop that once patrolled your every gesture powers down. You do not stop noticing, you stop interrogating. With interrogation retired, coherence collects in the ribs like rain in a clean cistern. The mind, free from its assignment as warden, becomes a reading room. Thoughts enter, set their books on the table, and wait their turn like courteous guests. You are not detaching from life. You are attaching to it without the static of self-suspicion. This phase asks for a simple posture, permission. You give permission to your body to stop bracing. You give permission to your day to proceed without your constant supervision. You give permission to the field of remembrance to do what it has always been doing, arranging the nearest elegant configuration of reality around the signal you're actually broadcasting. Silence is the interval wherein the arrangement catches up to your latest sincerity. You may mistake silence for delay. It is not delay, it is recalibration. Like a musician retuning between movements, the pause is how accuracy is kept. In that pause, old entanglement threads float to the surface like dust motes in a shaft of light. You don't chase them with tweezers. You open a window. Breath is the window. With each measured exhale, a contract you never meant to sign loosens and drifts out, not as exile, but as compost. What remains are clean lines. Light code sitting legibly in the nervous system. Values aligned with verbs. A day that can be trusted to carry your weight. Silence has etiquette. It asks you not to make announcements about it while you are inside it. It invites you to reduce ornament in speech, to move slower than habit, to let your yes emerge from the warm center rather than from the glittering rim. It prefers unspectacular concentration, cutting fruit as if the blade were a sentence, placing a cup as if the table were a friend, walking as if gravity were a partnership instead of a leash. In such manners, you become porous to guidance that doesn't raise its voice. You will hear smaller sounds, the pre-word rustle of a sentence assembling, the faint click of a boundary arriving without resentment, the soft, almost humorous sigh of your nervous system realizing it no longer has to impress you to earn your care. The stillness window opens a little wider, and the breeze that enters is not ideas, it is the felt sense of right proportion. Proportion is mercy. It tells you which task is a seed and which is a leaf, which conversation needs depth and which needs a period, which invitation is weather and which is climate. If you worry that silence will make you passive, test its mathematics. After 20 quiet minutes, the next action becomes obvious and small enough to execute without argument. You send a precise message that unknots a week's worth of tension. You cancel one meeting and recover 3 hours of actual life. You step outside and let the horizon correct your posture. These movements are not dramatic, but their yield is. Systems love conservation. Silence reduces friction. Reduced friction increases throughput. Increased throughput frees attention for care. Another gift arrives. You stop borrowing urgency from other people's storms. In the hush, their weather patterns register as weather, not mandate. Your empathy stops impersonating rescue. You can stand with someone in honest pain without adopting their velocity. The room grows large enough to hold many climates. Such largeness is not indifference, it is stewardship of your instrument, so the music can continue. When doubt visits, and doubt will knock like rain on a roof, you just repaired silence treats it as weather too. You don't argue meteorology, you confirm structural integrity. Hand to sternum, you test the ember. Warm, proceed. Dim, rest. Flickering, reduce input and expand exhale until the flame steadies. You do not perform confidence. You create the conditions where confidence doesn't have to yell. In this phase, time loosens its belt. Minutes stop sprinting. You glimpse how the higher timeline threads through the ordinary like a quiet river that has always run beneath the road. You don't have to dig to find it. You only have to stop paving over the sound of water with your assumptions about speed. When you walk at river tempo, conversations arrive at the bank exactly when you do. The ones that do not were never yours to host. Let the room of silence teach you to bless without commentary. Bless the spoon, the doorway, the person who forgot themselves and raised their voice. Bless your older strategies as they retire a proper farewell to the guards who served you beyond their training. Bless tomorrow in advance by making your bed like a promise. Bless the past by refusing to prosecute it for not knowing today's news. Blessing is not denial. It is a technology that routes energy toward dignity. You will know the silence has done its work for now when speaking becomes a continuation of quiet rather than a break from it. Words emerge already warm, sentences arrive with their own gravity, and your presence edits rooms without anyone losing face. You do not advertise the shift. The world senses it the way skin senses shade. A second rhythm appears beneath the first, steadier, truer. Let the room of silence hand you back your name, and carry it like a candle cupped from wind. Activation is not fireworks, it is fidelity taking form. Begin with breath exact enough to be trusted 4 in, hold for 4, 6 out, pause for 2, until the instrument inside you hums at a single pitch. In that hum, the quantum field finds a stable address. Contact occurs, not drama contact. A quiet pressure gathers at the sternum, the precise warmth you have learned to read as permission. Eclipse halos linger at the edges of vision. A soft light assembles behind the eyes as if dawn had chosen a slower language. You place your attention over the warmth like a lantern and invite what is next to identify itself without costume. It arrives as a small choreography of knowing. First, a line of ease down the spine. Then, a widening just beneath the collarbones. Then, a sentence already true before it reaches the mouth. Speak it inwardly. I agree to be aligned in action, not only in intention. The sentence is not a contract with pressure, it is a kindness with a backbone. At its speaking, the day's furniture shifts half an inch closer to where it always belonged. Activation relocates power from fantasy to posture. You stop outsourcing your momentum to signs and begin lending your steadiness to signs worth keeping. A notification pings that used to detour you. You breathe once through the warmth and delete it without ceremony. A conversation tilts toward the old theater. You choose one accurate sentence and let silence finish the work. A task you have postponed because it could not be perfect becomes small enough to finish because it can now be true. This is how coherence behaves when given chores. It organizes without humiliating what was disordered. You will feel the system confirming in microphenomena that don't ask to be photographed. Doors open on first touch. Words arrive in time for kindness. Timing lines up like pearls on a thread you didn't have to string. The world is not bowing to you. It is relaxing around a signal it can now predict. Prediction here is not control. It is compatibility between your signal and the simplest good available in the moment. The body records this compatibility as an unforced height, as if your vertebrae had remembered their lineage. Light gathers as syntax. What you once called inspiration now feels like grammar light codes, no longer streaking the sky but reading themselves in your breath. You don't chase them, you consent to be their page. In meetings, you listen until the room's sentence wants its verb, and you supply it without flourish. In prayer or quiet, you stop asking for rescue and start agreeing with the structure of the mercy already present. Mercy, you discover, is not a mood, it is proportion restored. If part of you waits for a trumpet blast to certify the moment, bless that part and offer it a simpler seal. Keep one small promise immediately. Drink water before the screen. Step outside and let horizon edit you for 3 minutes. Send the message that cleans one corner of entanglement without writing an essay about it. Accuracy at small scale is how large patterns admit you to their company. Systems love conserved energy. Your fidelity conserves it. There is a tenderness to this immediacy that will protect you from zeal. You won't need to announce new rules to people who never asked for them. You won't need to deputize yourself as an amplifier of anyone's storm. Instead, you will become reliable, weather temperate, breathable, generous with shade. From such weather, invitations grow that do not require you to counterfeit yourself. Even your no will feel like shelter. Let the hands participate. Right palm to sternum, left to navel. Breathe until the low abdomen becomes a shoreline and the chest a lighthouse working quietly because ships exist. Let the lighthouse rotate through your day, a turn while you read, a turn while you cook, a turn while you choose not to explain. Rotation is consistency disguised as grace. Consistency is how activation keeps its temperature. If heat dips, you do not accuse the fire, you feed it with presence. There may be a tremor of grief as you activate the subtle mourning for years you spent negotiating with versions of yourself that could never sign what your bones have now agreed to. Do not prosecute those versions. Thank them for carrying you this far with the tools they had. Gratitude returns their labor to the commons, where its energy can re-enter as support instead of self-sabotage. Now place the call and response where it belongs, in the quiet, where you can hear yourself answer. Whisper into the quiet, I remember. Then type, I remember the prophecy. Not as performance, but as an address, a postal code the higher timeline can recognize without knocking. When words and breath and bones say the same thing, reality is relieved. Relief travels. Rooms register. Strangers feel safer near you for reasons they cannot name. Finally, test the work the way a craftsman taps a bowl to hear its note. Return to a place that once kinked your spine, the inbox, the hallway, the mirror. Stand, breathe, and let your presence edit the scene. If the note rings true, warm, centered, unforced, proceed. If it wobbles, do not dramatize. 2 quiet cycles of breath, 1 accurate sentence, 1 precise choice. This is how activation feeds tomorrow rather than exhausting today. Silence nods. Permission is granted for the next unveiling. Hold the breath as a chalice for 1 quiet count and let it pour back into the body like a vow remembered. You stand where agreement becomes architecture. The warmth at your sternum is no longer a flare, it is governance. The bell that summoned you has dissolved into your pulse. What remains is a signature the world can read without you raising your voice, your prophetic seal. You do not stamp it with spectacle. You keep it by keeping yourself. The field of remembrance answers a life that refuses to counterfeit its signal. In that refusal, rooms reorganize, calendars soften their teeth, and speech chooses the short road home. The quantum field does not decorate you. It coordinates with your fidelity, the way tides coordinate with the moon, without debate, without applause. Feel the somatic certificate, a tall, unforced spine, breath that arrives on time, a cool light behind the eyes like polished dawn. Your presence edits noise into clarity by proximity, not argument. People who are waiting for a reason to be kind find one. Patterns that fed on postponement forget your address. You do not announce a new identity. You carry an older one with enough steadiness for reality to recognize it. The destiny vector you sensed has matured into quiet trajectory. It no longer begs for confirmation. It gives direction to whatever steps on it. A door you once tried to solve has stopped pretending to be a riddle. It opens because you are the answer key now, not to everything, but to what is yours. Coherence holds. You say yes, only where your bones can keep it. You say no, the way a coastline says no to the sea, not as refusal of water, but as the shape that lets water be water. You will still meet weather. Winds will test the windows you have repaired. Let them. You have learned to bless without bargaining, to adjust without abandoning, to rest before the instrument phrase. The solar prophecy is not a rumor of distant suns. It is the daily radiance you steward so others can navigate by it. Your light is not a spotlight. It is a climate warm enough for truth to grow, bright enough for pretense to retire dignified. Now, make the seal visible in deeds so ordinary they feel like prayer. Keep one promise when no one is watching. Choose one difficult mercy and let it be enough for today. Send one accurate sentence that frees 2 lives from an old knot. Walk 1 block at the tempo of your breath and let the street remember how to be a path. This is how the signature sets ink. This is how timelines choose. If a doubt knocks at midnight, you do not convene a trial. Hand to heart, you verify the ember and answer at the speed of kindness. Your memory no longer lives only in words. It lives in posture, in pace, in the generous gravity of your presence. What began as hearing the inner bell has become being the bell, a clear tone, inside the world's confusion that does not scold, only clarifies. You came to be this simple. You arrived to be this precise. The seal is not permission to withdraw from life. It is authority to love it accurately. Step forward as if the ground were reading you because it is, and it will keep meeting what you keep. The door you feared was stone, turns to air in your hand. The field has named you. Proceed as the naming.